So welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for December 2nd, 2021. We will follow the agenda in the issue, which was issue number 1131. Before we get started, do people have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if there's no announcements, next up is CPC and board meeting updates. I don't have a board meeting update other than there is a board meeting tomorrow. So if there's something on your mind and you think I should be bringing it up there, let me know. On the CPC side, Rich, any update on that?
Nope, no meeting this week, and I don't have any updates there.
Okay, so we'll move on to the issues which were tagged for the agenda. And I'm going to add at least the one I tried to tag through the discussion item, but we can handle that near to the end. The first one is stream, remove Venable support number 40773.
I think
if anybody's been involved in that and wants to jump in.
That's a Robert Naj one, isn't it? I can't remember.
I see Antoine has a comment on it. So I don't know if you want to, and yeah, Antoine, you also added the TC label. So do you want to bring people up to speed on that and ask what the ask is?
Yeah, I have no memories of that actually. So let me try to reread that.
Sure. Here's the link in case that helps.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's Robert wants to deprecate something without going through a runtime deprecation first.
Right. Yeah, Yaman supported
the level. Mm-hmm. So the level is there for us to, I guess, say, oh, it's okay, or no, we should not do that.
Yeah. There seemed to be general support for it. I think even James, who is probably the sticklerist of us all on the deprecation front, seemed to be okay with going right to runtime on it.
Yep.
Okay, so is there anything to discuss or something we need to do to sort of confirm that, to allow it to move forward?
I think between no objections raised in the issue and no objections raised at this meeting, I'm content with moving forward. I don't think we need to formalize it as a vote, but if anyone else feels differently, we can do that.
I do see that there is one request changes, Antoine. Was that just to, so we would discuss it and vote on it?
Yeah,
here?
Yeah, exactly. And the documentation only deprecation hasn't landed. Well, I mean, now it has, but yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Antoine.
Okay, so I guess, Antoine, are you happy that given this discussion and confirmation that it can go forward?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's probably closes on that one. We can move on to the next one. The next one is docs, clarification around real world risks and use cases of VM module. This is 40718. I'm just looking at how that got onto the agenda. I see, so Matteo added it to the agenda. I don't know if anybody else has context on that front. It's pitched as an API reference docs problem.
I'm just getting to it now.
Yep.
this seems like it's probably not time critical, and we can wait until Matteo is around to explain what the ask is. Maybe we can just put a note in there in the issue saying, hey.
I think it'll come down to, we've said that the VM isn't a sandbox, and the ask here seems to be like, well, can you say that it's actually a security mechanism in some cases, or when it might be safe? And I don't know, that sounds like a slippery slope to me.
Yeah, it is. Generally comes down to every time we think that it might have a case for it, there's some demonstration that it's just not. So I don't think we should relax that at all. Now, I see Matteo here is suggesting that we get something else in here, isolated VM or some other mechanism for actually having a proper isolation. Here, I think that's worthwhile in pursuing, but we definitely should not relax the warnings against using existing VM as some kind of sandbox.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was put on the agenda just to sort of raise awareness so that everybody knew that was going on.
Okay, I'll just put so rich time critical, not time critical. Let's leave on agenda, leave on agenda.
I'll leave a comment in there, but you go ahead and type up your thing. I'll just leave a comment that asking to clarify what he wants the TSC to do exactly.
Okay, so we'll just say we'll leave on the agenda and discuss when Mateo's on the meeting, and you can leave a comment and maybe that'll move us forward as well. Okay, the next one is rename default branch from master domain number 33864. I don't think I've seen any comments on that to say we've made progress. I know there's a few key, yeah, so I did notice that actually Targos has done some work on Node Core Utils and we were asked to update, so that's good. But I don't see any updates since then in terms of, I know Richard is looking at a couple of modules and a couple of projects and so forth, but don't think there's any updates this week. Okay, the next one, unless anybody else has something to add to that one, the next one is migration of core modules to primordials, number 30697. The last comment I remember seeing on
this, I think our Ruben was supposed to review the options and the voting for this.
Yep.
I think that's what Girish asked.
Yep.
So I don't know if Ruben wants to tell us where things are at.
So I did that. I do not know, I didn't check what was spoken about last week, but as far as I see it, the new options are not really yet sufficient, because if we would do that, and like it was suggested to separate the voting options into two parts. One part would be goals, and one part would be, what was it? I have to check on my own. Let me see. Possible approaches, right? But if we do that, like, and maybe one approach does not actually fit the goal, and out of my perspective, there are also at least some possibilities not yet listed. So I wrote down an alternative that had multiple options there. I don't know, like anyone here in the round could obviously also suggest more alternatives. But at the moment, it's a little bit difficult to really get to a point where we can start with the process to vote for it.
So it sounds like there's more conversation to be had, at least between you and Girish, and possibly between you, Girish, and some other people who are involved in coming up with the options.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I guess, like, have you put into there, if you were writing the options, what they would look like for the vote? I see you have like a long list of 10.
Mhm.
Is that the list that you'd want us to vote on, or
That
is it
was
just a
one
suggestion?
It's
Okay.
a suggestion for a list, and then I could imagine as one. Like, I don't say it's perfect. I believe it's difficult to find an ideal list of possibilities, but as long as we, as the TSC, all agree upon that we have sufficient options in there, then it would be fine out of my perspective. And we could obviously also have like multiple rounds of voting, and like either to first throw some options out that are only less voted upon, and then do a second round, or we have like what was just suggested last week was the multiple different things about the goals and the goals and approaches. But if we do the goals, we have to also then vote upon, okay, is it actually possible out of our perspective to reach that goal with one of the approaches? And that's really difficult out of my perspective to combine properly in the voting process.
I imagine we probably are not going to be able to move forward much with this in this meeting because we don't have all the right people here, which is really unfortunate because this has been going on for quite a while. But I think that's the reality. If someone else feels differently, please say something. But I don't think we're getting any. I don't think we're going to get very far here and now today.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, is there anything we could usefully do to get us going in the right direction?
Like, not a lot of people have actually from the TSC commented on it in general. So maybe if we have like more TSC interaction in that issue, it might be good.
Okay, so the ask is ask for more TSC members join.
Go in and I'll go in right now and I'll leave a comment tagging TSC. That's, you know, not that may not generate anything, but it's, you know, at least an immediate step we can take to try to get more engagement in there. I know I have not been. I've been awaiting the 3 or 4 options to vote on. Is what I've been doing. But if we all have to get involved sooner than that, then so be it.
Yeah, I've kind of been in the same ballpark, but it sounds like we've got to do something to move it forward.
Like, I have the feeling we will not be able to reduce it to only like 3 or 4 options.
Okay, so let's leave it on the agenda. Rich is going to tag the issue for asking more TSC members to get in. We'll see if that unblocks it for next week. Anything more people want to discuss on that one before we move forward? Okay, if not, the next one is add security triaging to core repo governance and or charter. This is 1100. Just taking a look at, so Rich, you opened that one.
Great, I was in the middle of typing a comment. Okay, let's see here. Which one is this? I'm sorry, repeat, I wasn't.
It is number 1100 and it's related to security triage.
What's the, never mind, I'm pulling it up.
Here, I got the link if you.
Nope, already got it, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, right, so, okay, yeah. So this is really, this is morphed into basically trying to fix our security triage woes that have fallen particularly heavily on Mateo. And I think we've got something that so far is working reasonably well. I wish Mateo were here to be able to say, well, actually it's too soon for him to say anyway, but you know, another week or two, it'll be interesting to hear whether or not he feels like, you know, how things are going. But Michael Dawson and I and Mateo and Vladimir and Danielle have all met and sort of worked out, went through the triage, the vulnerability triage process, and sort of refined it so we all understood it as best we could in the time we had. And we agreed on a schedule. I am on triage duty right now. Started on Monday. It's a 2-week rotation, so I'll be doing it through next Monday when someone else takes over. And in the middle of this month, I think on December 15th, but I keep forgetting to send out the invitation, but we all took a doodle poll. And I think on December 15th, we're going to have another meeting where we basically sort of let Mateo or maybe Vladimir screen share and just have them walk through a bunch of stuff and ask a lot of questions just to make sure we're all using HackerOne the same way. But so far, I think it seems to be going really well. And the remaining piece for this issue is that we kind of need to do something to, we sort of have the same issue in moderation, to be honest, but okay, so now we have a reasonable amount of people doing triage, great. We kind of need to be able to recruit new people, let people rotate off, things like that. And in most cases, it probably makes sense for the people to be doing this to be TSC members, because much like with releases, you really get given the keys to the kingdom in some regard, not keys to the kingdom, but you get given very privileged information. And so Vladimir is not a member of the TSC, but he's been doing this a long time, and he's known and trusted by many of us. And maybe there are other people like that, but I don't know, that also, approaching it that way, also there's a certain way in which that doesn't pass the smell test, so to speak. So I don't know what we're going to do there, but that's where things are at. That's my rambly update. We also are looking at recruiting, and Michael, maybe you want to say more about this or maybe not, but recruiting more security stewards, people who basically help out with the releases to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So I think Mateo's been doing it. Before that, Dan Bavinius did a lot of it. I think you have 3 companies and 6 people lined up. And
yeah, I can give an update. There's been a few people who've done it over the years. Myself, Sam, Dan, Mateo did the last one. And I was hoping to get to 4 companies. I think that's a good rotation. And I was hoping for companies versus individuals, so that it's like a company is committing their time versus people making time in their schedule versus their company maybe pulling in the different directions. I had approached a number of different companies who are involved in the project. So far, we have 3, which is, Red Hat IBM is 1, Nearform is the 2nd, and Datadog, it sounds like is willing as well. And that's where Vladimir and actually Brian come in. And, we have the open discussion just to confirm that everybody's okay with onboarding those 2. But really would like to get at least one more. A couple of the companies I've talked to hasn't panned out, and one I'm still working on. So yeah, similar to what you've got here, hoping to get to the point where we have a rotation, and we have different people doing it in that rotation, so that no one person or one company has to do it every single time and sort of get burnt out on it. So I think that I'm hoping that'll make things better. I did want to ask, did you document the rotation for the triage somewhere? If I can add the link there, or is that just internal?
It's not yet documented.
Okay.
There's still things I'm putting together. I just had yesterday asked Brian and Jury, and Brian Warner ended up doing it, to create a private Slack channel because we need a way to communicate. I wasn't sure if we should have an email. It's like when we talked about it, we decided to have a Slack channel. So there's definitely things that are not yet in place, and documentation is one of them. I wanted to add real quick, so let's leave this on the agenda for things like that. I mean, hopefully we can get this closed out, in another month or so, but there's definitely work still to be done. But James just commented in the issue that he thinks he can get back involved with triaging, and be a sixth person on the schedule, which I think is great. I hit the heart-shaped GitHub react to my comments, and everybody who can hear my voice should do the same. And the other thing I wanted to say is just make sure Danielle doesn't have anything she would want to add to everything we've said so far, because she was there.
No, I don't have anything to add, really.
All right, then, unless there's additional questions or comments, I think we can move on to the next issue.
Okay, sounds good. The next issue is move BNB dev env to Node.js dev container. This is number 641. I think this is just, I can't remember who put it on the agenda. It could have been me. Yeah, I put it on the TSC agenda. Just wanted to make sure that we got enough plus ones. And I see, Rich, you mentioned we could put it on the agenda as well. Don't think there's been too much conversation. I don't know if people are up to speed, but there was discussion again and something coming out of Next 10 that if we could make it easier for people to build Node.js, that would be helpful to collaborators. Part of it is that it takes quite a while just to get to the point where, like, hey, I've compiled Node.js, so when I make my one-line change, it doesn't take 10 minutes to compile, right? And the discussion we ended up with is actually a container where you'd pre-compiled Node would make a lot of sense. And basically, if you could basically, under Docker say, I'm going to run this container, everything's compiled, you make your little change and it recompiles really quickly, that would actually help people move a lot more quickly. Tierney worked on putting together the container. And I guess not, the resources that you need to build the container. The longer term goal would hopefully have this be built in the project somewhere and published so that people can just download it. But he started working in his own repo, and this is moving that repo into the org so that we can collaborate together on the resources used to build what that container would be. So I guess there hasn't been much discussion in that issue. And the question would be, is there anybody here who has any concerns over doing that? Otherwise, we might take that as a signal that we can move forward since there hasn't been any objections or comments in the issue itself.
No objections, but two quick comments. One is that I've actually been experimenting with this with Gitpod, and it would be great if we got this working. Gitpod times out because our build takes so long. There's an issue open for them to extend their timeout, so hopefully that'll work out. And I don't know if it would work better in another provider or something. But I think the one that Tierney, I think the format that Tierney chose is either consumable by multiple providers already. I think it's already on Gitpod's roadmap, so I think it's probably fine. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that since you mentioned Tierney, I forgot to mention that because we're supposed to announce this during the announcements part of these meetings, that his nomination has been open for 7 days with no objections, so it passes. I'll be onboarding him as a collaborator probably tomorrow. I think we have something in the calendar already, so just wanted to mention that.
Okay, I'm just adding that as a note into the announcements up front. And so I guess, like, again, anybody else have any comments they'd like to make, or objection to the assuming that if nobody's objecting here or in the issue, we can move forward? Okay, so I guess I will just put a quick comment. And I'm going to put a quick comment into the issue itself. And the TC meeting today. Sorry, just. Okay. Okay, so that's good. We will move that forward. The next one, which I had tried to put on the agenda but didn't make it, was this discussion item, which is around adopting, and I guess I should have said parts of the Electron I'm just finding the issue. So discussions, there we go. Parts of the Electron style guide.
Oh, I came back just in time.
Okay. So there's the link. There isn't really any discussion in that discussion item, which is where I was starting discussion, but there is in this PR that Tierney opened. And I thought it would be good for us to discuss and go from there. So I can provide some context unless people are all up to speed.
I'm up to speed.
Context would be good.
So say that again.
Some context would be good.
Okay.
So
sure. So yeah. So the context is we had a mini summit, an X10 mini summit a week or so ago. I can't remember exactly when. We took a deep dive into two things that were identified, and we've landed in the list of things we think are important for the success of Node going forward. The one that's related to this was supporting types. So not necessarily TypeScript specifically, but supporting the use of types with Node. In the discussion, a couple of the key things that came out of that were, one, the current model where the types are actually maintained separately, and in the case of TypeScript indefinitely typed, is the model that everybody there believed made sense. Like nobody was advocating for us bundling in types or anything like that. There were people from the definitely typed team, and they're like, the flexibility of having them managed separately is the way to go. So that's one thing we're going to document, and we can have some more discussion when that gets documented, because I want us to document somewhere. The second thing that came out of it was that what the type systems do need to do, though, is somehow convert from our APIs into types effectively. Today, they do that by parsing the JSON we generate from our documentation. Unfortunately, it's not an easy task because that format is not well structured, not consistent. And so they've got some tools they've cobbled together, but it's kind of like run these tools and then spend a bunch of time manually munging things and checking for differences and stuff. So the key thing that it seemed that we could do as a project to support, the external teams and orgs and people who want to have good typings for Node, was to improve how we can provide some structured JSON documentation. Tierney had looked at that issue in the past. Electron generates their structured JSON from their docs, and they are able to do it more effectively because they've got a little bit more structure in terms of like how they use the headings and things like that. So the suggestion was, and they already actually have a parser which parses their documentation, which gives you two things. One, it validates that when we make documentation changes that you're not breaking your generator. And two, it converts the structure they do have into something which is actually good enough to generate types, and they actually automatically generate their types from that. So we're not proposing that we would generate the types, but that if we could generate the JSON that then would let the other teams generate it without having to do as much manual work, that would add value. So because there's already a generator for Electron, the thought we were working on is, can we adopt the structure that they use in their docs? So not changing our wording or, our conventions or anything like that in terms of like how you should word the technical content, just how we use headings. I think the key changes would be how we use the headings and how you document the parameters. And, Tierney had an example where I forget which one he did, but like when I looked at the two of them, they don't look that different. It's just that like, the headings are more indented or whatever. And so this PR, and I mean, the original discussion was more around just to start the discussion that says, like, do we agree that that's a good direction to go to? It will cause, it will cause some work in the project, obviously, because there'd be change to the docs. I'm hoping that those PRs would actually be easy to review because they wouldn't be changing technical content, right? Like, we're not changing anything that we're docking, we're just changing the structure, right? So they'd be easy to review. We'd want to plan to do it incrementally so that, like, you could opt in to the sort of parser validating as you did file by file. And the hope was also that, like, our existing documentation generation, and this is where, like, we probably have some more work to be sure, wouldn't actually be broken, because, our when we submit our PRs for the docs, I don't think there's anything that validates the structure. So, like, if you added three more headings, those would just show up in the HTML. We don't validate that, you're using headings in a particular way or not. And so that the actual existing flow of publishing the HTML wouldn't change. The JSON itself, the structure might change slightly, but we did have the discussion, the people who were consuming it, one of the people, the definitely type group, was like, we'd totally eat that churn if we get something better in the long run. So maybe there's some other people who are major users that might not feel that way, but at least they validated that would be useful. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything. So it was like, and we wouldn't immediately replace the JSON that's there. Like, I think we would be starting by, having ideally, at least in my mind, what we would do is we would have the validators. I looked at the Electron document parser. I tweaked a little bit to say, like, could we add in an opt-in so you can say, like, only do it on certain files, so we could do it incrementally. So ideally, I could see, like, we would change one file, opt it in so that, you would actually get checked from then on when people were making changes. And we would generate a new JSON file, which I don't know where we'd publish or whatever, but, like, this would be one that would just have the doc for that one. And over time, we could build up the ones which were actually being converted over while keeping the existing HTML and the existing JSON going as it's going.
In terms of, it all sounds fantastic, man. I'm a fan of that format. But kind of the one place where I see it getting complicated and difficult longer term is backporting. Making a doc change and then backporting it to the LTS versions. Is the plan here, as we're doing this incrementally, to also backport incrementally to ensure that we don't run into those issues?
I think that's a key question for us to decide, like, which is better, to backport those changes or to not backport them. And then, like, is backporting all of these doc changes more work than having to reconcile the changes that we do then have to, like, individually backport, if you know what I mean?
And we can't answer that question until we know what those changes are, and we can't know what those changes are until we have a full conversation about what the aspects are that we're pulling in.
I can definitely see that in some cases, like even just looking at merge conflicts or whatever, with those different formats, it's going to get a bit irritating if we don't backport them as we go. But Rich is right. Until we actually start playing with it, it's going to be hard to know for sure.
So yeah, I put this on the TSC. I agree with Rich. I don't think we're going to, like, resolve this, but I did put it on the agenda to hope to get people interested in getting involved in that discussion and helping to move it forward.
I'll say that I'm very interested in determining what the absolute minimum alterations we can make to our doc format now that would yield these benefits would be. And as you've said, Michael, but just sort of echoing it / amplifying it, like the stylistic elements of the Electron style guide, I'm just not interested in adopting, not because they're bad or good or anything, but just because, like, this is not what we should be talking about. It's like, okay, we've adopted the Microsoft style guide, done. Let's never have another conversation about whether we use sentence case or title case again. We just have Microsoft style guide tell us, that kind of thing. And but to the extent that there are things that we can do to enable better tooling and improve things for the ecosystem and for ourselves, awesome. But let's definitely incremental would be great, and finding the absolute minimum we can do to accomplish that would be very, very helpful.
And that's exactly like, I'm 100% with the what's the minimum we can do. And I should have thought about it beforehand, even when I opened the issue, to make it clear that, like, yeah, when we style guides got the very, all those things like the Microsoft style guide is what people think of, and that's not at all what we should have been putting into people's minds. So at that, but yeah, so I think unless are there questions or anything else we think we should discuss now, to help move it forward, or is it like back to the issue now that people think, and we'll move it forward there, and with a little bit hopefully with people having a little more context.
Yeah, I think it's back to the issue, and I think also I'll talk to Tierney about this one if we have time before or after onboarding.
And I will say that I won't have time to participate in this, but I'm very, very thankful for those of you that are. I think this is good, a great thing to do. So
I do think that, like, once we figure out the framework parts, I suspect we'll be able to get more people will jump in to say, oh, well, I can make that mechanical change. So that's that. I'm hoping that, that's where there was one comment that it's a lot of work, but I think it's the kind of work that it may still take some time, but we can have more collaborators and sometimes new collaborators help with once we figure out the hard parts.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I think that's good for that. We can take a quick look over then at the strategic initiatives. Let me just pull those up. Nope. Yeah, guides. So Antoine, anything new on the core promise APIs?
No update.
Okay, James, anything on quick HTTP 3?
Other than that within the next month, I should have time to get back to it, which I'm super happy about. There's a massive PR out there that we have had some folks starting to experiment with and play with. They found all kinds of issues. I'm getting my list of things to work on when I can get back to it here in a few weeks. Would definitely appreciate other folks looking at it. It is big, I understand, and one of the things I'm going to be doing is trying to find ways of chunking it up more incrementally. So there may be that one big PR might actually get turned into a bunch of smaller PRs. The only challenge with that is they may not be complete thoughts, right? Like it may not be one PR with full functionality. It might end up being much more incremental than that. But it'll make it easier to review. So that's where it's at right now. What I'm anticipating is end of December. By the end of December, I should be able to have time freeing up to start working on it again. I mean, it won't be full time, so it's going to take some time to do, but that's where we're at.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, in terms of the strategic initiatives, that's the ones that we have on the list. I guess I just, depending on what we agree on the documentation front, we might add that as one of these in the future, but subject to the discussions that'll take place in the issue. So that takes us to the end of the agenda. Before we close out, is there anything else that people would like to discuss? If not, if the TSC members can stick around for a short private session, I will stop the live stream. Thanks for everybody who